What's up, guys? My name is Garrett and welcome to my new channel. So glad you're here, so glad you're watching this video. This is probably the first real video on this channel, so awesome. What we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be going over an iPad Pro 2 wish list. See, I actually was considering getting the new iPad that Apple just released, but there are a lot of things that I think only the Pro iPad line would offer, and so I think I'm going to wait. So here's my wish list. Now, before we get into that, I just want to go over how I'm going to be doing this and how I would actually use an iPad so you can understand more of why I want these particular things that I'm wishing for. Now, first things first, the perspective from which I'm going to be making this video and all of my tech videos are that of a regular person. And yes, I'm aware that every single tech reviewer says, well, I do it from a regular person. But in my opinion, if you start to really talk about specs and stuff like that, I think you kind of lose what the average or what a regular person would really care about. Because in reality, I don't think a regular person would care about the specs, more so that it just does what they want it to do when and where they want it to do it. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on. And so to do that, I asked myself, how would I use an iPad? Now, that's an interesting question, and I guess this would be the question that Apple would ask themselves in developing a new product, is that what would people be using it for? How would they use it to do that thing? I'm not really an artistic pro user. I know that's why Apple came out with the pencil and they touted a lot how you could draw with it. I'm not going to be doing that. So I will not be spending the $100 or whatever it costs to buy said Apple Pencil. I'm more of an entrepreneur, business person, a content creator, productivity person. So that means I would use the iPad as a productivity device. Yes, of course. I would use it maybe when I'm out somewhere that I don't want to bring my computer with me, or when I'm, let's say, just in the living room. I don't want to have to sit at my desk, but I would still love to be able to get some work done. I would love to be able to create content with it, so I would consider, if it works out well, editing my videos on it, or maybe even recording some of my videos on it. Let's say I was somewhere that I didn't want to bring this lovely, beautiful Canon T6i with me. So I would consider using the iPad to record the video, but of course the camera would have to be good enough. The device would just have to be good enough to do that. Not saying that it's not as it is, but in this wish list, I think improvements can be made. Now, like I said, I did consider getting the new iPad that Apple's just released, which is $329, I believe. However, there are some features that iPad does not have. Understandable, it's only $330, that the Pro line only has. So, that said, I now have to get the iPad Pro, or I'm going to at least wait to see what the new iPad Pro is like. Some of these features that I would like include quad speakers. Now, these aren't necessarily Pro features, but Apple deems it as such when they don't include it in the iPad for the masses. I would also like a Pro-level processor. Now, this, I guess, would be the A10X, would be the new one coming out. Currently, it's the A9X, of course. But the new iPad doesn't have that, it just has the A9. I would also like a camera, specifically 4K video, as well as a higher quality front-facing camera, because I probably want to look at myself while I'm recording the video instead of having it be backwards. Doesn't really make any sense. The new iPad doesn't have 4K video, I don't believe. And it also, the front-facing camera is like 1.2 megapixels versus the 5 megapixels of the current 9.7-inch iPad Pro. I don't really care too much about how thin it is. I know the fully laminated display makes it so it can be thinner. That doesn't matter to me. But 1 pound is kind of, I think, on pace with what the original iPad was. A little heavy by today's standards, maybe. I would rather it be as lightweight as possible. I mean, there's no reason not to have it be as lightweight as possible. Two more things that I would like are the anti-reflective coating as well as the smart connectors, just in case I wanted to at some point get the keyboard. Maybe I want to get it at the time of purchase, maybe later down the road. I don't know, whatever. But I would like the option to be able to get that. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. This is my wish list for the iPad Pro 2. Wish number one is that they have the same pricing structure. Now, I've been planning on spending about $600 for an iPad Pro, which would land me the entry-level 9.7-inch currently. But if they were to change this pricing structure with the release of a new line, which they have done in the past, I don't know why, then I might not be able to buy it, or I might have to wait a longer time to buy it, which I don't particularly want to do, obviously. Or I might have to, make some sacrifices to get a lesser quality model than what I was originally expecting to get. Now, rumor has it that there's going to be a new 10.5-inch model, and that would come with all of the new features, all the great bells and whistles that they're going to be introducing. Now, I don't know if that means that the other two are not going to get that big of upgrades, maybe just some like spec upgrades to say, hey, this is the iPad 2. But my question is, would that mean that those models stay the same pricing, or would they drop down in pricing if they're not going to be getting all of the same features that this new 10.5-inch model would be getting? Wish number 2 is continuity across the entire product line. Like I said, this 10.5-inch rumored device seems to be that it would have all the new features. So would the 9.7 and 12.9-inch iPads not have them? I don't know if they would or if they wouldn't, but it seems as if no one's really mentioning that the two current ones will get all of the new features that this 10.5-inch model would get, and that's annoying. Will it then be out of my budget, this 10.5-inch model? Because I would love to get the one with the new features, right? It's probably the one that's also the most future-proof, if you will. I would love to have that model. One thing I really don't want to do is have to choose an iPad based on the lack of consistency across the lineup regarding product features. I think it makes the most sense to have the biggest difference in feature be the screen size, and then let people choose, and maybe some like, small features here and there based on what it can actually fit into the device, right? But I think that's what makes the most sense. And then and then allow people to choose which screen they want, but automatically just get the same features. I think that's what Apple has done really, really well in the past. That other companies just haven't done, and I would hate to see them get away from that. Now, another thing that I'd like to see is an upgraded camera. Now, I'm aware that they're probably going to upgrade the camera no matter what. This was something that was inevitable. However, if I'm going to actually consider creating or recording some of my videos on this camera, I really, really want to see that it is really high quality 4K video. Now, I understand that it's already 4K. It's probably already really high quality 4K video. But just because something is 4K resolution-wise doesn't mean it's the same quality as that of, let's say, a Sony a7S Mark II, for example. They're just not really the same. And I'm not saying that I expect the iPad to shoot with the same quality level as the a7S Mark II. However, a general improvement would just be nice. Now, I'm sure they'll do that anyway. I'm sure that's probably inevitable, but it's part of my wish list. Why not? Wish number 4, I think, is more of an edge-to-edge display design. With this new 10.5-inch model that is rumored, it's also kind of mentioned that maybe it'll be more of an edge-to-edge design or display design. It would be the same actual footprint as the 9.7-inch iPad, but just, with a bigger screen because it'd be edge-to-edge. Now, I would really like to see if maybe they could kind of do that with the other two devices as well. So maybe you make the 9.7-inch smaller, but still have a 9.7-inch screen. Same thing with the 12.9-inch display model as well. And the reason I want that is because if this 10.5-inch model is going to be that much different with that many different features, I think it would be better if all of them kind of looked as similar as possible, even if this 10.5-inch model just has different features. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it would just look really silly to have this one model in between that kind of is like the model that you want, and then just two models that it seems like they kind of forgot about. I think at the very least they should make them look similar, even if the feature sets are not going to be exact matching or whatnot. Number 5 is battery life. It's just better battery life. That's always really a concern no matter what device you get, Apple or not. It's always there. The next thing is improved connectivity for external devices, excuse me. If this is going to be a true productivity device, if this is the real pro device that they say it is, it needs to be able to connect to as many devices as possible. It needs to be able to work properly with as many external devices as possible so that you can do all the things you needed to do when you needed to do them. Another thing that I would love to see is an upgrade to 64 gigabytes as the base storage line, or base storage model, or base storage option, whatever you want to call it. Now it's 32 gigs. I think it'd be really awesome if they made it 64 gigs. I mentioned that I wasn't really going to get into this, and I'm not really going to get into this. I'm just going to briefly mention it, and that is general spec updates. I think it's just important to mention that that's still an important part of the device. You need better specs to do more and better things. So an A10X processor, probably I'm assuming that's what's going to happen. Maybe more RAM and better graphics processor. I mean, that's definitely, I think the graphics will definitely improve. All right, so I have 2 more wish list items, and I think honestly these might be kind of the most important because this actually has to do with how you use the device. Everything else was specs that enable you to use it in better ways, more or less. But these 2 things are pretty important. The first one is a more thought out iOS. Everyone talks about this. It's like the thing to talk about right now. But it's so true. I mean, they built a device, the iPads that is, that have so much potential in what they're capable of doing spec-wise, but they have an operating system running on them that was originally not even made for real like productivity or for like pro use or for day-to-day like on a consistent basis. It was more so made as a mobile device for the mobile OS for the iPhone, and it really hasn't changed. I think if you look at how it has changed, it probably hasn't changed more than it has changed over the last 10 years. Maybe a more specific version of iOS that's specific for the iPad versus like, you know, for the phone. They're really the same thing basically with a bunch of little features. I think creating a bunch of new features and whatnot that allow the OS to take advantage of what the software can, or what the hardware can do, and then in turn allow the user to take advantage of what the hardware and software can do together, would really be beneficial. The next thing is pro apps. Okay, so it's a pro device with apps that people that are pro, like they have some version of Photoshop on there. But in reality, people kind of say, yeah, well, it's there, but it's not a computer replacement. iMovie is there, but it's not replacing Final Cut. And it may not even be replacing iMovie on your computer. If this is supposed to be a pro device, I think it would be in Apple's best interest to create versions of all of their pro apps for the iPad. I think this would also be a really good strategy for them to show off what exactly the iPad Pro is capable of, because up until now, there are pro apps, in my opinion. For me, there's no pro apps, or there's no apps in general that would totally make me say, yeah, I'm going to not use my computer anymore and just use an iPad. I would be using it in conjunction with my computer. So I think this is definitely a good way for Apple to kind of show off what the iPad is capable of, and maybe other third-party companies such as Adobe or Microsoft or whomever would make more their pro apps available, or more fully, full-fledged versions of their pro apps available on the iPad. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Definitely, if you think I forgot something, or if there's anything that you would like to see in the next iPad Pro, tell me down in the comments. I would love to hear what you think. I'm sure I missed a few things. If you like this video, definitely subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.